This is WJOU 90.1 FM Huntsville, serving the Tennessee Valley, a broadcast service of Oakwood University, on the web at wjou.org.
Good afternoon and welcome to Second Chance. Second Chance is a weekly talk show that examines a wide range of social issues and seeks to inspire physical, emotional, social, and spiritual healing, believing that God is a God of second chances, and through faith, all things are possible. Second Chance airs live each week from the beautiful campus of Oakwood University and features real people with real issues and offers real answers. And now, here's your host, Kenneth Anderson.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Second Chance broadcast. I'm Kenny Anderson. It's always delighted to be here with you for the program. We, of course, come to you every Sunday from 2 to 4 p.m. Central Standard Time from the beautiful city of Huntsville, Alabama. And, of course, we've been doing this now for over 35 years. So we're just delighted to still have a platform that we can share information and inspiration on a weekly basis. There are people listening this afternoon who are listening on the radio. We welcome you to the broadcast. There are some who are listening perhaps anywhere in the world right now because you're tuned in on the internet at WJOU.org. And of course, we have those who are benefiting from the live stream this afternoon on both YouTube as well as Facebook on Praise 90.1 FM. So we thank all of you for being part of our day. And of course, it's a special day today. I'm excited because it's Father's Day 2026. And as always, I get a chance to share my special tribute that I do annually to my dad, who would have turned 103 on his next birthday, which is July the 16th. I always like this space to honor fathers and celebrate them for all the great things that they are. So to all the fathers out there today listening to the broadcast, happy Father's Day to you, whatever form you come in. If you're biologically a father, if you are a mentor, a coach, a pastor, a community leader, doesn't matter what shape or form you're in. Maybe you're a big brother, maybe you're an uncle. Whatever you are this afternoon, and you enjoy the privilege of being able to guide and direct the life of another because of that experience, we're grateful for you this afternoon. So happy Father's Day once again to everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started with my first guest on the broadcast today. And we got some really, really good people on the show today. Thought I'd do a very special Father's Day emphasis so that we can have some really rich and meaningful conversations. My first guest is Tiffany Love. And let me tell you a little something about Tiffany. She's the founder and executive director of the Joseph Institute, a Texas-based nonprofit equipping households, churches, and communities with practical preparedness training rooted in the biblical mandate of Genesis 41. A trained instructional designer with a background in workforce development and federal program oversight at the Texas Workforce Commission, Tiffany brings both professional expertise and prophetic purpose to her work. So we're so delighted to have her here on the Second Chance platform today to learn all about her ministry, her calling, and her mission. Tiffany, thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Hello, praise God. Thank you, Mr. Anderson, for having me on today.
Absolutely. And feel free to call me Kenny. I know I'm the senior in the room, but, I always kind of look around for my dad. I just mentioned my dad, Jack Anderson. When they say Mr., I'm like, where's Dad? Now, feel free to call me Kenny. I'm just so excited to have you today because when I first learned about the ministry that you are engaged in at this time, of course, there's much more to it, but we really want to focus on this very, I think, unique and specific opportunity that you are walking in your purpose to be able to bring to people's attention. So talk to me a little bit about what the Joseph Institute is.
Well, Kenny, the Joseph Institute is, as you stated, it's derived from Genesis 41, where it talked about the story of Joseph. Joseph prepared during the 7 years of plenty to feed during the 7 years of famine. This was a download that I received from the Lord, so I am being obedient to him. And given the world's climate, given the way that the weather is, all of the different hurricanes and disasters, it's very important that we become prepared. And not only prepared when it comes to food, clothing, shelter, things of that nature, but also to be prepared for the Lord, to be knowledgeable when it comes to the Lord.
Yeah. So where did this come from? I'm always interested when someone says I'm doing something or I started something. I mean, is it a conversation around the dinner table? Is it a vision that comes to you in the night? Is it something that you've been researching and reading about? Or are you working alongside somebody and there's a spark of inspiration that comes? Talk to me about where is this born and how do you develop such a process?
I would have to say that this is influenced from the Apostle Joshua Giles. I watch him and follow him. I've been doing that for probably about 2 years now. And he comes on live every Monday on YouTube. And he always talks about how we need to be prepared. These are things that we need to get. He'll tell us about the food, the shelter, heating devices that we can purchase on YouTube, different things of that nature. And one day I was listening to him and I just heard a voice and I know it was from God. And it said, you need to start training people to become church hubs, because in a minute, we're not going to have the opportunity to go to hospitals because they're going to be overcrowded with not only people who have physical ailments, but people that are coming for illnesses. Remember COVID back then when the hospitals were just bombarded and there were no beds. So this was a download for the Lord that says, you need to get the people ready. You need to have them to be prepared, because in a minute, resources will be just the demand will be greater than the actual supply.
So let's take that one step further, because as I'm listening to you, it's very exciting actually to know that you honored a call to do this, something that was internally sparked in you based on some things you were hearing and seeing and kind of understanding a little bit about. And in many ways, and not to diminish what happened, but in many ways, a lot of other people hear that too, but they don't start the Joseph Institute. And so I want to connect those dots, because one of the things I do on this platform is not only do I celebrate people who do these things, but I also try to use it as an instruction guide for others, because, there's always that person listening out there that they're ready to take the next step, but they don't quite know how to do it. It's not necessarily going to be the same for everybody, but I'm always interested in hearing that part of the story and how the vision is executed. So, taking what you just said, the awareness of the specific needs that are present now and will happen and are happening more than ever before, where there are deficiencies and, whether it's housing or food or clothing, what have you. And now you're inspired to do something about that. Well, we have the Red Cross out there. We have FEMA. We have all these other places out there that are doing things. So I'm always interested in hearing, how does that person in the trenches, how does that grassroots warrior step into that space and then just move in the power of God's Spirit?
I would have to say stepping into that space just had me to sit back and reflect on the past events. The winter storm that happened in Texas about maybe 3 or 4 years back, where it was 1 week where it was sub-zero temperatures and people were actually dying. FEMA existed during that time. The Red Cross was available too. But when you have a vast area of resources, but you have a bigger area of people that need it, they're not going to be able to get to those resources right away. Let's even fast forward to last year in November, when the government shut down and the SNAP benefits were paused. People did not know where their next meal was coming from. They didn't know how they were going to feed their children from 1 minute to the next. There were resources out there, but you have to think in reality. Those resources are already bursting at the seams because of the economy, because of people not being able to work, because of the high prices of groceries. So if you already have that in motion and then stack on a disaster on top of that, it's going to capsize. So the best thing is to be proactive. And I'll even paint another picture for you. COVID. COVID rocked our normalcy to the core. It was people that were in grocery stores that were fighting over loaves of bread. They were fighting over rolls of toilet paper. And while the Joseph Institute may not be able to prevent the fights that break out, we may be able to be a little more self-sufficient and being a little more prepared and to be proactive rather than reactive.
So what are the building blocks of the Joseph Institute? Are you a nonprofit? Are you an LLC? Are you an independent person? Do you have a team working with you? Talk to us about the actual application of this exciting initiative.
I am so glad that you asked that, because as of this weekend, I got the news that we are now officially a nonprofit. So before this started, we were recognized as a Texas nonprofit. So we were able to obtain our 501c3 status. So now we are a national nonprofit. Not only that, we have won. Thank you.
Yeah, got to give up some applause for that.
Not only that, we have gone international in the past week. We have reached a couple of people in Africa. We have some students in Liberia that are actually signing up to take the course. So to answer your question, how the Joseph Institute works is that it is 2 branches. The first one is called a storehouse certification, and that is for individuals. You can take this on your own, at your own pace, online. You sign up, you take the 8 modules. After you take those 8 modules, you neighbor or you partner with your your American Red Cross, and you get your CPR first aid certification. Once you receive that, you will then turn in a picture or a copy of your certificate to me, and then I will provide you with a storehouse certification. This will help you to be prepared not only in your home, but you can also help your neighbors. You would be surprised at how one person can save a block or a street or a neighborhood. The second portion is called the Joseph Strategist Program. The Joseph Strategist Program is for churches, organizations, and groups. These are a large area of people where what I do is I train you to build a hub within your community. Now, I will add that you do not have to be faith-based in order to participate. My job is to deliver God's message, and He handles the rest. In addition to that, you also have to get a Red Cross certification. With the Joseph Institute, we feel that, yes, it's easy for you to save canned goods and to be able to save water, but you also have to be able to save a life.
So let me unpack some of that, just so that I can make sure I fully understand, because I want people listening to fully understand as well. There are 2 options here, it sounds like, to be able to engage with you as it relates to the Joseph Institute. There's more of a localized individual type of thing that could happen to people, but there's something that's perhaps a little more expansive. You mentioned churches and organizations and things of that nature. So there's a training process to this, a training component. You mentioned modules. Let's talk a little bit about what do those modules teach. And then when I get done, the significance of that storehouse certificate and how that then gives me or empowers me, let me say, to do whatever it is that I want to do to support social services in my community.
Absolutely. So when I mentioned the 8 modules, of course, I used my instructional design experience, and I actually built a curriculum on it. So just a couple of classes or a couple of modules to name for a few. The first one is the mindset. So before you even get started, we have to explain to you why it's important to have this mindset. It's not to instill fear, but rather for you to be prepared. Then we go into food storage, water purification, heat and light sources, first aid, things of that nature. And then once you get your certification to empower you, so to speak, this will allow you to go out and help the community as well. Now, when it comes to the Joseph strategist position, it's along the same lines. However, you can partner with the outside resources. You can partner with the food pantries in your neighborhood. You can operate with, let's say, community action or all of the other organizations that you have. And also, once you get your Joseph strategist certification, your group or organization or church, it becomes a Joseph partner. How the Joseph partner works is that, let's say there are three churches in one neighborhood. One church, they have a very high volume of children and babies. Let's say another one may have the elderly. And then let's say that the third one has a mixture. Well, if you have someone that's at the church that has the mixture of children, families, and elderly, but let's say that they need products for babies. Let's say that they need diapers or they need milk. Someone can say, well, you know what? We partner with this church up the street. They have a lot of baby products, so you can go here. Same way with the church that has the baby products. If there's an elderly person that says, say, they need medical supplies or they need bread or food, you can refer them to another church. So it's like we're one big partnership. We're one big collaborative community helping each other. And we can resource navigate people to various resources. So it's almost like an inner resource, and then you have your outer resources where you go to the peripherals like community action, Red Cross, your food pantries, things of that nature.
And do those organizations recognize that certificate?
We're working on it, not quite. This is a fairly new organization, but we are partnering with a lot of people. I have actually been going back and forth to the Capitol, and I've been speaking with quite a few of government officials, senators, things of that nature. Tomorrow, I actually have a meeting with the Office of Emergency Management for the city of Baltimore. So we are definitely making waves and getting the recognition.
Yeah, so your conversations with legislators and other people in government positions, what is that designed to do?
It's designed to bring awareness. To bring an awareness about the percentage of people that don't have enough food if we were to not have utilities or electricity anymore. How many people would actually have food in their home? How many people would have access to water in their home? How many of those people would be able to go to an outside resource and get food and water? The economy, the price in groceries, things of that nature. So it's really to bring awareness and let them know that, yes, we have all of these other resources that are here, but we also have the Joseph Institute that can work as a synergist.
So, and I'm not saying this has to happen, but I know I work a lot on the ground here with legislators. At least I did when I worked for the city of Huntsville, and then even outside of that, through some board activities and more. One of the reasons that we oftentimes engage those individuals went beyond awareness. Sometimes it was to provide opportunities for them to see the big picture, to see if there's an allocation in a budget that they may have to be able to support us. Maybe it's a facility that they may have access to that we might be able to utilize and partner. And also just the whole notion that they have a huge network to get the word out. So it could be all of those things, but I'm wondering, are there specific things that you might be sharing with them as well, saying, hey, these are elected officials. These are the folks that are, representing people in their communities. And certainly if there's an opportunity to provide financial support, I certainly would be asking for that. And I'm wondering, are you doing things like that?
I am asking, but it's not a priority ask.
And tell me why that is, because you have all the money you need?
No, it's not because I have all of the money that I need, but right now, by it being a nonprofit, right now we're filtering our money in with the enrollments and with grants and funding. However, if the government officials want to donate, by all means, we are open for that. But the main thing that we're asking for is to amplify, collaborate, and elevate.
Tell me about the grants then, because and read them ask you all these questions. It's not a test. I mean, you know what you're doing. I don't know what you're doing. And so I'm trying to get you to tell us what you're doing, because again, as people listen, they may be people who say, hey, I need to reach out to her to find out what's going on. And then that collaboration can create synergy around something. That always happens in these spaces. And so I'm curious also, again, and I understand the nonprofit thing, because that's going to be able to drive some things in terms of the financial anchoring, because you're going to need that. I mean, I stopped making apologies for asking for money years ago, because when I was doing things and I needed money and couldn't get it done, I realized I need to ask for money. So,
Absolutely.
I don't run from that anymore. I'm diplomatic, I'm conscientious, but I'm going to ask. There's no question about it. But I also know that there's some ways that that's more effective than other ways. So, if you have a nonprofit, clearly you have a 501c3 tax deductible basis, and congratulations on that. That's going to really elevate your game. But when you think about grants, so are there certain organizations that you're thinking about in terms of approaching, or is it just kind of a whosoever will approach to people that might fund you?
I'd have to say both. There's burning the candle at both ends. So there are some FEMA grants, of course, that we definitely would qualify for. So that's important. Again, networking with the various states. At first, my focus was going to be on the Gulf Coast, the Gulf states, just because of the hurricane season. But then I got the download to think bigger. So as I'm collaborating with these other states, there are grants, emergency grants that are available that we would qualify for. But then we have the other side. Those who want to donate, absolutely, we are open to it, and you will definitely be acknowledged. So we don't definitely close the door, but we just want to say that we're just not begging for money is not our only source.
No, it's not begging. See, that's why I said earlier, I'm going to ask. People can define it however they want to define it, but I'm going to ask, because I have learned over the years, it takes money to get things done. And I've been in the game a long time, so it's like many years ago, I was kind of sheepishly moving. I had a good heart, right? And I thought my good heart was all I needed for people to hear about. I had a great idea. I thought my great idea was all that people needed to hear about. And here I am working through my good heart and my good idea with no money. And so I got to the point where I'm like, well, listen, I'm looking around at other people too, and I'm like, hey, they know how to ask, or they're benefiting from asking. I better get in that game of asking too. And I understand, it's a fascinating journey. I love the fact that you have this vision to make an impact on people's lives, and you're kind of negotiating it as you go, and there's a need. You've kind of identified what that need is and the sweet spot that you're trying to land in. I think that's all great. And I want to ask you another thing about just the structure of your process. And I kind of asked this earlier, but I don't know that I was clear. Is it just you? Do you have a team? Do you have a staff? Or as you move forward, what are your thoughts about the growth of your organization?
I have a board. I have 3 wonderful ladies that definitely are very passionate. They align with the same goals and morals and standards as I do. And they do work tirelessly around the clock, trying to get things done, reaching out to people. We have so many appearances this summer that we're going to be going to because of their help. I have a social media team that posts on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. We do live videos. When we go to Austin, we film our trips to Austin. When we went international, we make announcements. Just last week, I had a Zoom call, and I'm actually getting a lot of requests for another Zoom call. So I will be having another one of those in the near future.
Yeah, boy, that's great. I love the fact that you are strategically thinking about, how does your expansive reach grow? And you need those kinds of things. Everything you said are the things you need. But, we've kind of buried the headline a little bit here. So let's maybe, as we begin wrapping things up, let's make sure that we cover this part too. You have some roots here in this community where I am right now. Go and tell us a little bit about those roots, because, listen, you got an army of those folks listening, and they want to know how they can help you.
I do. I am a Bulldog. I graduated from Alabama A&M University. I left Huntsville in 2008, and then moved to Dallas, Texas. And now I have settled roots in Houston. So yes, I love Huntsville with all of my heart. Huntsville helped me find myself. I have a lot of dear friends and dear connections in Huntsville. I would not trade my experience on the Hill for anyone.
Yeah, that deserves another round of applause, of course. Fellow Bulldogs here, we love the Hill. We love the fact that we're Bulldogs, and we love to support Bulldog. Bulldog Nation, I tell you, is just doing so many amazing things too. And we come through those institutions and we have our experiences, we get our degrees, and then we go out and do things like Tiffany's doing. And we go out and we start planting those seeds in the world so that they can grow and that they can have an impact on other people's lives. Tiffany, if people want to learn more about the Joseph Institute in the present moment, like they just want to go to a website, social media presence, stuff like that, talk a little bit about that. But if people want to get engaged, maybe become part of your team or learn more about how they can really begin engaging with you and interacting with you, tell us some steps and how people can do that.
Absolutely. Right now, I am on LinkedIn. You can find me at the Joseph Institute. On Facebook and Instagram, you can also find me at the Joseph Institute. And if you have any questions or you want to learn more or you want to volunteer or get on the staff, you can email us at info@josephinstitute.org.
And are there unfulfilled needs right now that you have? I know you mentioned having a social media staff and people that are on the board and things like that. Are there other needs that you have that people may want to think about, or they just want to reach out and call you and explore stuff?
Let's just see what you have. Reach out, give me a call. There may be something that I'm not thinking about. We all have blind spots. So if there's something that you feel would be a great asset for the Joseph Institute, by all means, reach out to us.
Yeah. And again, we want to let people know how they can do that.
Again, on Facebook and Instagram, I can be reached at the Joseph Institute. On LinkedIn, you can find me at the Joseph Institute. And you can also email me at info@thejosephinstitute.org.
All right. So there are multiple opportunities to engage Tiffany, to learn more about what's happening at the Joseph Institute. Sounds like there's a lot going on. Sounds like there's a lot that's going to be going on. And it sounds like they're moving in a direction to really align with many of the challenges that we're facing in our world today. You hear all these things about climate change, and you hear all these things about the storm of the century, 100-year storms and things of that nature. And you hear about systems being overwhelmed as a consequence of that. And Tiffany's absolutely right. You know, when the pandemic hit, and even for me, because I'm already engaged in the community a lot, you know, I'm down at Manor House, which is a food distribution site, and you're seeing people all the time. These are former engineers and people who are in between jobs and people who have a difficult pregnancy. And I mean, it's not just our stereotypical thought about people who are in need. A person in need is a person in need. And Tiffany's initiative is a need eraser, eliminator, an opportunity to come alongside people who are having challenges and issues in life and to make sure that they get everything that they need. We're excited about the Joseph Institute. We would love to hear more as you continue to grow and develop. So make sure you keep us informed. We'll give you a spot here to talk about it anytime you choose to. But once again, it's the Joseph Institute. Tiffany is Texas-based, but her roots are deep here in Huntsville, Alabama, at Alabama A&M University. Go Bulldogs. Tiffany, thank you for joining me this afternoon, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you, Kenneth. God bless.
All right. Have a great day.
You too.
Great way to start our day, folks. Tiffany Love talking to us this afternoon about a very important initiative. She is the founder and executive director of the Joseph Institute based in Texas. Of course, she has roots right here in Huntsville at Alabama A&M University. I'll say Normal also, because I don't want to insult anybody that has, you know, that strong tie to the Normal community. And of course, I'm a Bulldog as well. I say go Bulldogs all the time. And we're glad to be able to hear from her today and learn about what she's doing on the ground. They're in Texas. Again, former Bulldog doing some good stuff down in the state of Texas. We certainly appreciate her for being with us on this afternoon. My next guests are here and ready to roll right now. I'm excited to talk with them and looking forward to hearing all of the great things that they're doing as well. Eric Borden is president of Making Excellence Possible Incorporated. You know, we talk a lot about excellence on this broadcast, so it seems like he's rightly positioned for this conversation today. And also Dr. Robyn Borden, his wife, is with us. She's director of Making Excellence Possible Incorporated. We welcome both of them to the broadcast this afternoon. How are you all doing?
I'm good, Kenny. How you doing?
I'm doing well.
I'm doing great this afternoon. I'm looking forward to hearing a lot about this initiative that you have and all the great things that you've done and anticipate doing. So we will certainly dive right in just a moment. So talk to me a little bit about what Making Excellence Possible is.
Making Excellence Possible Inc. is a mentoring and tutoring program that we started back in 2016 in Detroit, Michigan. And my wife and I had great success there. We moved to Huntsville back in May of last year, 2025. And we want to implement what we were doing in Detroit here in Huntsville, just to fill in the gap, try to get kids where they need to be, try to help them overcome the ACAP test. We do iReady. What we do, my wife and her board, they will implement a system and they'll test the kids to see where they at and what they were missing to go back. So then we'll go back and move forward so they can comprehend everything that they didn't comprehend previously.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, I'm always fascinated when people kind of talk about the genesis of something. You're born and raised in Detroit?
No, I'm from Alabama, West Alabama.
Well, tell me, tell us about that. Tell us what city was, and then tell us tell us about the journey.
Okay.
So
well,
where did it all begin?
Well, it started back in 1969. I was born in Alabama, raised rural area Alabama. The largest city was called York, Alabama. We did a lot of sharecropping, agriculture. I grew up without a father. He passed away when I was 6 months old. 15 kids, next to the youngest. My mother had probably about a 6th grade education. There were 9 boys, 6 girls. And for some odd reason, God showed me favor. Tell you the truth, Kenny, we had to do a lot of work on the farm. I went to school, but I didn't get the education that I should have because of doing the things I need to do to help my mother and my sisters on the farm. But God showed favor, and I would like to give back to those kids.
What was it like to be one of 15?
It was different. My oldest brother, probably about 30 years older than I am. My oldest sister was 16 years older than I am. My youngest brother, we 11 months apart. So basically with my mother and my younger brother and myself, we grew up together. So I felt like, I'm not saying I was the man of the house, but I felt like I had to do what I need to do, try to help my mother. Yeah.
I want to talk about, the journey to Detroit. I don't know if it was directly to Detroit or if there's a way around that, but let me bring Robyn in for just a minute. Robyn, tell me a little bit about your background.
Well, I was raised on the east side of Detroit, and I attended school, magnet school, so my parents were very supportive. And I attended University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, and then I went into teaching. My mother was an educator, so that's why I kind of followed her footsteps. And so when I met Eric, we talked about our community and the children that were suffering because they could not pass certain tests in Michigan. It was called the M-STEP in Michigan. Mm-hmm. And because I was on the inside of the schools and Eric was on the outside, it was better if he helped from the outside because I had all of the guidelines within the schools that I had to follow to help students, but we needed to take more of a radical approach to try to help students outside of school. So that's how we got together, and we started focusing in on single mothers and raising children and what we could do to support them because they may not have the resources that other couples have. We didn't limit it to single mothers, but we started there so that we would have a base of support for them. And we were able to help some students in Detroit attain better success in school.
There are so many things I want to ask you guys, and you guys haven't said a whole lot yet, but your stories sound fascinating to me. I'm going to start right here, though. How'd you guys meet?
How did we meet?
Here we go.
Well, I think I moved to Michigan back in 1996, and I was a personal trainer at Ballard's, and Robyn used to come to the gym all the time, and so I just see her working out. Plus, I was a car salesman, and I approached her by asking if she need a new vehicle, and it went from there. Our friendship just grew for over 22, 24 years.
Right.
Wow. Robyn, do you have the same story?
Yes, it's the same. He told me my car needed some work, and he said that he could help me with the car, and I did need some work, so it worked out well.
Yeah, go ahead.
He was the top salesman at Honda, so I had to make sure that he kept it on the up and up and didn't take advantage of me.
Right.
Right.
That's right. Keep it professional for sure. You said something, Robyn, that I want to double back on because I think it's fascinating how you've got this love for education. Eric, you come from, my grandmother had 6th grade education, things like that. Very, very similar to my situation. In fact, as I'm thinking about it, my mom had 12th grade education. My dad had 8th grade education. And yet I've gone, through doctoral studies and things like that. And, it's real easy to lose sight of something that has value if we don't experience it in a meaningful kind of way. So, Robyn, you talked about being inside the system and being sort of constrained by things that might be the template that one may define for a young person's journey of success. Eric, you're kind of on the outside of that process. And so you can really kind of, use guerrilla tactics. You can kind of get in there in ways that other people might say, no, you can't do this. And they'll even say, you can't do this, but you have the freedom to do that. Just talk to me a little bit more about that from both of your perspectives, Eric, what you're seeing outside of the process or what you were seeing that kind of motivated you to move into this space that you're in right now.
What motivated me, Kenny, was that I didn't get that. I had the opportunity to go to school, but due to circumstances where we grew up at, I went to school, but I didn't get the full understanding of school. God blessed me to graduate, blessed me to join the Marine Corps, blessed me to play football. I tried out for pro in 1994. But I saw a gap that was missing. I saw a lot of kids that were like me, Kenny, that they didn't ask to be in a position like I didn't ask to be in that position. I didn't choose my mother or none of that. You know what I'm saying? So me being the person I am, when God put on my heart, I saw a lot of kids that need something, and that something was filling the gap. And I noticed that a lot of kids today can't maneuver the way I maneuvered from where I came from because the system not like that anymore. So the kids need education, they need understanding, they need structure, they need guidance. And I learned all those things from my mother and by joining the military. And I see a lot of kids fall by the wayside. You can be a smart kid, but structure and discipline plays a major factor in education also.
Yeah, that's good. Robyn, talk to me a little bit about just being inside the process. And you have to, in some ways, I think, see beyond just the position and the title that you have. I was an educator for 16 years, and I saw some of the most incredible things happen within that space. And I saw some very disappointing things. And some of the most disappointing things I saw were where educators didn't believe in students, gave up on students, had low expectations of students. And so talk to me a little something about your experience as you worked in the academic space and how you have applied your sensitivities to challenges that children face in the school system?
Well, first of all, I think just being in that space, I was able to show students love and consistency. So I'm a fair-minded person. So the students were able to see that. I took that for granted. All educators may not be as fair-minded. So students see the discrepancies in their classrooms, in the hallways, etc. And from working as a teacher, instructional specialist, administrator, I tried to move around so I can get a better understanding. I worked in charter schools and public schools, high school, K-8, and adult education. And I saw the impact that it had over time. And we were going through the No Child Left Behind. So that really hurt students. The parents don't always understand what's going on in the classroom. So I tried to help parents with that. Offer parent workshops. We didn't always get the attendance that was needed. It was just like the structure, character development, conflict resolution, all of those things played a factor, especially when you crowded the classrooms with 35 students or more at times. Somebody was going to fall by the wayside there. And if you moved around, say your parent had to move around from different school to different school, you lost things there. So with our program, we were hoping to offer some type of consistency where they can use it as long as possible, where they can feel supported and have fun, just being surrounded with people who cared and could do other things other than what was limited in the school. We could take them on trips with the parents' permission. We could interact with them at different activities based on the parents. And it was just a different type of relationship that you can have or fully develop when you're in the schools. Also, Kenny, and I'm sure you probably experienced this, sometimes the people making the decisions weren't in the classrooms, and sometimes they didn't communicate with the people who were teaching in the classrooms. So some of the ideas sounded good in theory, but when you applied them, they didn't necessarily work in the classroom. So that hurt us also.
Yeah, wow, that's really good. Eric, I'm listening to Robyn talk, and she mentioned two things that I want to kind of circle back on and get your thoughts about. So, we have historically talked about young people in this way. They're going to get pregnant. They're going to get strung out on drugs. They're going to drop out of school. They're going to get into fistfights with other kids and not be able to manage conflict. We talk about all these different things that they're doing, but Robyn just said two things that I think are so powerful in the journey that so many people, I think, continue to miss: the application of love and the application of consistency. To build an expectation that a young person begins to believe in themselves, that somebody's going to support them in the journey, not do it for them, but support them in the journey and make sure that they're held accountable for what they have to do. Talk to me just a little bit more about why love and consistency are the things that we really need to focus more on than just these things that kids are doing. We can always talk about behaviors, but at the root of those issues and challenges is sometimes the absence of that love and that consistency.
Well, Kenny, it's amazing you said that. A lot of things you just said was a lot of things was said to me as a child growing up. You wouldn't make it. You're not gonna make it up out of here. You lazy. Telling my mother he won't make it. I joined the Marine Corps. A couple of people, I ain't gonna call no names, they'll be public, said that sis, that boy won't make it. They called my mother sis. He was the youngest sister out of 18 kids. They said, sis, that boy not gonna make it. He didn't go to school. A lot of things were said to me. How you gonna do this? You didn't go to college. A lot of those things was hurt. But one thing I had love from my mother, and I had God beside me. They didn't see him, but I knew him at an early age. And I prayed daily, if you bless me, God, to get grown, I promise you, I'll take care of my mother. Yeah. And he did that. Along that ride, Kenny, I saw kids that were like me. A lot of people gave up on. And those are kids that I would love to be around, because I found out if you take that kid and put that kid in an environment with love, trust, and teach them integrity, teach them structure and discipline, that kid will fly to the sky. Because all he or she wants is someone that loves them, and they can prove to them that, hey, I can do this. Because that was me, Kenny. I just want someone to give me opportunity.
Yeah, that's good.
I just want opportunity. When God put me in that situation to get the opportunity, I'm not bragging, but I excelled at everything I did, Kenny, by the grace of God. I just needed someone to give me a chance.
Yeah.
And that integrity, Eric didn't say this, Kenny, but that integrity was important. He promised his mother he would take care of her. So when he went to the military, he kept sending the money home every month.
Yeah, I did. For 3 years straight, I sent $300 a month to my mother as a private. And I'll tell you something, Kenny, me not knowing taxes growing up, we weren't educated on taxes. We weren't educated on credit. We weren't educated on none of those things on the farm, sharecropping. So when I joined the Marine Corps as a private, PLC, as a matter of fact, I got to my unit and I went to administration. I think it was a sergeant. He said, you want an allotment? I said, yes, I want to make one for my mother. He said, how much? I said, $300. He started laughing. I didn't know. I knew I had $1,200, $1,300. I didn't know you got to take taxes from that. I just was doing subtraction because we wasn't taught that. But I stayed. I gave my mother the $300 for 36 months, Kenny. Wow. And me being promoted to Lance Corporal was an E3. I went back to Montgomery to buy a car. They gave me the runaround. Oh, you can't afford a car. You can't do this. You can't do that. So I went back to the house. My mother said, what's wrong with you, boy? I said, I can't get a car. She said, well, let's go out to the military base. Kenny, she went out there and talked to the guy. And the guy said, what you want, Miss Borden? She said, I want to sit down and talk to you. I want to get a car. Me looking like, I've been sending you money. How you gonna get me a car? But she, every dollar that I sent her, Kenny, she saved it. Wow. When I walked in there, she said, here you go, son. This every penny you sent me for 3 years. I said, I can't take that money. She said, yes, you can, because you did what you said you were going to do. And I want to give it back to you because I was never able to give y'all anything.
This is such a powerful story, and it is Father's Day. But I believe in honoring mothers and fathers. And when we hear these kinds of stories about how they were the rocks in our lives, that they were the grounding, that they were the foundation, I never take success for anything I've done without first giving glory to God and secondly, giving honor to Jack and Annie Anderson. So I appreciate you sharing what you shared today. That is indeed very powerful indeed. I'm talking with Eric and Dr. Robyn Borden today. They are the founders of Making Excellence Possible Incorporated, and they're making some good things happen in the lives of young people. We've got a few minutes left in the show. I want to turn the conversation slightly so that we can perhaps get in the mind of a young person. I'm going to give each of you the opportunity to answer this question. So you have an opportunity to share with an adult person something that a young person would like to share with them. I think young people have things to say. I think they have things to share, and I think we should listen to them. But I think sometimes in our own particular spaces, we don't make that time, or we will marginalize them, or we'll think about it as a kind of a linear thing. Well, I'm the adult with the experience. You're the kid. You don't know any better. And that's not necessarily the case. I think I can learn from everybody who has something to say. So talk to us just for a moment. I'm sorry, Robyn. A young person has a chance to share something that an older person needs to hear today. Give me one thing.
I think that I know for Eric and I, we're a little bit older now. So I think that even with the math problem, I'll take it from the educational perspective. With the math problem, the way that the math is done is totally different than how I arrived at a solution. So a lot of times they can show me things. I can show them a simple way that I think works, but they can show me things that I didn't have to learn. So sometimes it's foreign to me. So when they're teaching me, it empowers them. Look, you're able to teach someone too. So just like I'm giving back to you, you can give back to somebody else. So it continues to go forward in our communities.
Yeah, I like that.
That's important to me, that I'm open to that. Mm-hmm.
Good. That openness is so valuable in the space of that relationship thing. Eric, young kid wants to tell an older person something, and that older person is going to listen today. What's that young person going to say?
Ken, I grew up real structured, so it was hard for me to break that, but I had to learn once we got our youngest daughter. And I see she'll come to me now, me being a father and in the city of Detroit. So I talked to her about a few things, and she'll come to me and say, no, Dad, it's like this and it's like that. And I look at my wife and be like, everything could change. So, so I would say, well, I can only tell you what I know. Then she said, Dad, they don't do that anymore. They don't do this. And I talked to her, she said, Eric, she in school, kids do this and do that now. I'm like, woo. So I'm open and listen, but also give her the old school perspective.
I love it. I love it indeed. And I guess my perspective was simply that I think that we need to spend more time just listening and seeking to understand, not just bringing in solutions and solving problems that we don't take the time to really process and analyze and really understand, because, you can start trying to fix something that's either not broken or fix something that's broken and not really understand what the problem is in the first place. And you will fail in your attempts to fix it. And so I think it's real important to have that kind of organic experience where we can kind of remain open, like Robyn said, to those opportunities in expressing ourselves and learning in the space of working with young people. Making excellence possible. What do you want people to know about this organization in this moment? Is there a program? Are there opportunities that people can leverage in terms of volunteering? Is there an opportunity to support you in some way? Talk to us a little bit about that. If you have some thoughts about that.
Right now we were blessed to get in Morris Elementary School for 6 weeks. We were blessed to get in at Dr. Richard Shaw's Recreational Center with Dr. Morris. She gave us an opportunity. And Daniel Carter, United Way, gave us the opportunity to piggyback, if I could say that, with Brandon, Juanita, and Columbia and Lee High School right now. And then we met with Patrick Quinn, I think that's his name. At
Patrick Wynn.
Patrick Wynn. Okay, Patrick Wynn. At the Boys and Girls Club, and our pastor Christopher Gregory. And of course, I talked to you a few times at the Breaking Bread with Men's, I think, and I appreciate the opportunity that all you have given me and given us by the grace of God. But right now, my wife and I, we looking for someone to help us with grants, donations, sponsorship for the kids, because we really want to be in this for a long time. We want longevity. We don't want to be just someone fly by night to get a Facebook look, a TikTok post, Instagram click. That's not what I'm here for, Ken. I'm really passionate about giving these kids. I'm going to be real. I cry at night sometimes because I feel it. I had a vision. God put something in my heart I just can't let go. And I just want people to know that Making Excellence Possible, Inc. is something real. And we just need finance so we can pay our tutors. We can take the kids on trips. We can expose different things. I found something out in the metro area of Detroit, if you keep a kid in the same environment, they'll never know what's going on the other side of the world. And I was that kid. I was caught up in that little bubble on the farm. When I left home, I was shocked, like, man, all this going on, people doing this. So that's what I want to do. My wife and I, we want to expose kids to something different, expose them to better education. Not saying the school system failed them. I never say that. We just want to fill in the gap.
Yeah, that's terrific. Do you have a website? Is there, are you 501? Talk to me a little bit about that, because people will definitely want to know that as well.
Our website is makingexcellencepossibleinc.org, and we are a 501c3. So we have gotten donations at times. We've used our own money, and we incorporate IXL, which students are using in Alabama. So we're able to get the laptops. We're able to get supplies for the students. We want a quality program too. We're not just putting something together. We want it to be impactful. So our foundation is very important here, so that we can continue that growth, building upon that foundation. So it's very important to us.
Yeah, you guys are really in a position, I think, to be one of those, I'll say, ambassadors, academic ambassadors to our community, supporting school systems and other academic institutions, all of which need more resources. You know, we may look at certain operations and think they've got all they need, and that's never the case. I know that. And any way that people want to step up and help, I have found in this community for many years now, people have been accommodating. No one in this city has ever said to me, no, you can't come and work with our students. You can't help them after school. You can't, come alongside them and tutor. No, we don't want your help. I've never had that happen. Now, I've had to strategically go about it by building relationships with guidance counselors and principals and things of that nature. But it's been worth the effort to plant those seeds and build those relationships. And, whether it's coming in as a mentor, a tutor, a speaker, a supporter, just to come in and just be a part of the space and just, be a silent role model. All of those things matter in terms of the position that we place ourselves in when we stand up to people. One more time, the website for Making Excellence Possible.
It's makingexcellencepossibleinc.org. So please check out our website.
Yeah, Eric and Dr. Robyn Borden, I tell you, this has been a great conversation. I hope you guys will consider coming back to talk to me from time to time. Let me know if you have special programs going on or special needs going on, or you want to just give us a general update about what's happening with the initiative. We would love to learn, because that's what this platform is all about, doing positive things for people and making sure that people are connected to the resources that are available everywhere that they can find them. So thank you for being part of my conversation today.
Thank you for having us. We appreciate it.
All right. Enjoy the rest of the day.
You too. Thank you.
Right. Happy Father's Day.
I say to you, Ken.
Thank you so much. All right. Wow. What a great conversation, folks. Making Excellence Possible Incorporated. We're all about the excellence in life, the opportunities that people afforded to become better in life. What an amazing couple, Eric and Dr. Robyn Borden. We thank them for being with us this afternoon on this special Father's Day edition of the Second Chance radio broadcast. I'm going to come back in just a moment with more of the broadcast. I'm Kenny Anderson, and I hope that you're having an amazing afternoon.
You're listening to Second Chance with Kenny Anderson.
Welcome back to the broadcast. I'm Kenny Anderson. If you're just joining us this afternoon, the broadcast is Second Chance. We air every Sunday from 2 to 4 p.m. Central Standard Time on 90.1 FM. You may be listening this afternoon on WJOU.org on the net, which means you could be listening anywhere in the world right now. And of course, we have a live stream on Praise 90.1 FM on Facebook and YouTube this afternoon. So you can definitely connect with us in a lot of different ways. Once again, we want to say happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. I hope that you're loving on dad and treating dad like a king this afternoon. For those of us like myself who don't have their dads in the physical prints anymore, but I carry my dad in my heart every single day. It is indeed a good day. And of course, at the end of the broadcast today, I'm going to share my annual Father's Day tribute to my dad, my hero. And I look forward to that. So stick around for that. That's coming up a little bit later. My next guest is ready to roll. And I just love that background. You come every week with that background because it looks a lot like that background.
That's right.
Books, and more books. I love it. Anastasia Byler is the founder and CEO of Intergraph Paths LLC, an organizational development and HR consulting firm. I'm going to stop right there because I'm going to keep them intrigued. We're going to draw them into this conversation. We'll let them know all about what's going on with you, Anastasia. It is so good to see you this afternoon. Welcome to the Second Chance platform.
Wow, thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here. When you asked me to come on, you said you had an opening. I was like, yes, let me do this with you. I love talking to you. I love the conversations that we have. And yeah, just excited to talk to your audience and let them know what I'm doing here at Intergraph Path. And yeah, happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. I want to shout out to them.
Absolutely. You know, the fathers oftentimes say they've been besmirched because Mother's Day comes and it's like Mother's the queen and everything is about Mother's Day. And then Father's Day, they get a tie or a handkerchief and pair of socks. And, you know, it's like Father's Day becomes a default. So that's what I'm saying. Love on dad today. Take him to that big restaurant. Give him a nice chunk of change. Do something for dad this afternoon, special, and definitely hug him. You know, tell them you love them. Do that this afternoon. Yes. And we know there'd be a wonderful day today. So, yeah. Anastasia, I'm just so excited to unpack what you're doing, the space that you're in. Intergraph Paths sounds like a very fascinating journey, but unpack your journey, your career journey for us before we get to the space that you're in right now.
Yeah, absolutely, Kenny. Thank you. So I started Intergraph Path a year ago, but it started way before I actually applied for my LLC. I want to take you back to where I grew up, which was San Diego, California.
Ooh.
I grew up there, just loving being by the ocean. I planned my whole life to be an oceanographer. I loved to be by the ocean, out on the water, looking at marine life and everything. And something happened in 1989 that changed the trajectory of my whole entire life. And it's just one of those things that brings the whole story around to where we are today. And I had never known that this would happen, but it ties into what I do now. And that was there was a tragedy that happened in 89. I was raised by a single mom. And so I want to shout out to my mom here on Father's Day, too, because we always did that traditionally. So, but when I was a teenager, there was a shooting at my mom's place of work. And it was tragic and devastating. Several people lost their lives. And my mom's whole career just ended at that day. She had been working at the same position for 23 years, and she could never go back to that. Subsequently, I moved out to Huntsville at that time just because it was a real rough transition in our family. My dad lived out here, and I wanted to get to know him. So I came out to Huntsville. And it really just kind of turned my life around. That's when I started really becoming more interested in how people function at work, what it takes to have a thriving workplace. And I ended up going to school out here at University of Alabama, Huntsville. I studied psychology and business, got my degree, and started working in human resources. So that through that those years and that basically a big storm that happened in my life really shifted my path in a big way. So let
me ask you real quick. So, you know, the first thing that came to mind when you said a big tragedy out in California, it's a big state. A lot of things have happened, but I immediately thought about San Ysidro. But can you are you okay talking about what happened?
Yeah. It was a long time ago, like I said, 89. So I don't know if people remember this, but when mass shootings started, it seemed like they started a lot. There was a lot of shootings happening in the post office, and there was this thing called Going Postal.
Yes.
And there was even like a little store that came about called Going Postal, which was about shipping things outside of the post office.
Yes.
So it was a postal shooting. My mom worked at the Escondido post office in Southern California. And 4 people lost their lives that day. These were really close colleagues of my mom's, and she just never was able to return to that place then. And then my life kind of like started changing in a lot of good ways and a lot of really not good ways. So I found Jesus. I needed a savior, and I really found Christ at that time in my life. And that was a big shift. And I wanted to come out and live with my dad because he had also been a believer and wanted to, experience what that was about. So Huntsville, from San Diego to Huntsville in the 80s and 90s was a real big culture shift. I'll tell you what. And but I've been out here for many years, and this is my home. I've raised my children here. I have traveled a lot too, because I do like to go and visit different cultures. So I had a chance to live in Germany for about 4 years and worked in a really great research group in work psychology in Germany, which ended up turning into a side business I did for 15 years, where I would research and study and help edit work psychology from different professors all over Europe. And that was exciting. I was going to do my PhD as well in work psychology, but I ended up just sticking with the master's degree and working in HR. So,
yeah. What is the journey in HR? What has it been like for you, and how has it informed you about life? Because I think that next to being a psychologist or social worker, somebody who's working with people every day in that particular capacity, HR workers really, to me, come closest to that in another venue, in another experience, because you work with so many different kinds of people. And then if you have an HR career across industries, it exposes you to so many different kinds of things. What's the journey been like for you?
Yeah, you're exactly right. They joke around that the HR person is, also they need a couch in their office so people can come lay down. You're a therapist, you're a lawyer because you're dealing with all these legal issues. You're a bail bondsman. Just like the list goes on and on of the roles and the hats that you play. I have had different industries that I've worked in. Mostly for the last decade, I've worked in government contracting. Both in the DoD and with NASA. I've also worked with national parks and with Department of Intelligence. And I'm working currently with a client who has multiple contracts. So that's a space I've been in for a while, and I'm really quite familiar with all of the complications that are involved in starting up a company in that space and growing a company in that space. For me, I have decided at this point in my career that I can best serve people through my LLC as a consultant, doing very deep work with change and growth that's happening in a company. So, like I said, sometimes a change happens and you don't know that it's going to take you in a different direction. And so I have dedicated time to becoming more engaged in change management. And that's the people side of things. So taking them through, there's going to be lots of change, lots of disruption that's happening in the workplace right now. We all talk about AI. In fact, the SHRM conference is going on right now. And most of the topics are surrounding, AI and how are we using it? How is it changing the way that we interact at work? So with growth, that as well, I'm working with a company, like I said, in Virginia. They're going through some mergers, and I've been helping them to assimilate, several companies at one time and bringing cultures together and deciding, like, how are we going to operate together. So it's exciting. I love what I do. It's, professionally been very rewarding. I get to work with people one-on-one. I get to work with executives. And a lot of times people, say like HR is that thankless job that nobody, really wants to, either they're on the side of the workers or on the side of the executives. You're actually in the middle. I see myself as being a peacemaker and helping everybody to, like I said, thrive at work. That was my mission when this happened. I became very interested in what does it take to really have a good workplace where people feel good. They want to come to work every day. They want to make a difference in others' lives. So that's what I'm focusing on right now, is the change and growth that happens in the workplace. And that happens in any industry right now.
People are complex. There's no question about that. I think, again, the analogy for me as a mental health professional, I grew up being kind of a people watcher, growing up in New York City and seeing so many different types of things. And then, as I evolved, I just realized that, it's not just black and white. It's not just A or B. They're complexity. They're layers in terms of what people are. And I know you get to see that up close and personal. But I think one of the most profound things about being in the space is that we have an extraordinary opportunity to also learn from the space, from those people we meet and those experiences that we have. So talk to me generally about what have people taught you about people in life on your HR journey?
The people that I have, I've just been blessed to know so many different people from different walks of life. I lived in Germany. I've lived in Canada. I've lived in 5 different states. And then, going again from San Diego to Huntsville and having that culture, people have, one thing that I have been learning is that you can never assume what's going on with a person. You don't have all the information, and you're operating on just what you can see and feel, and you have intuition about in the moment. So I have learned that there are times where you just listen. You just need to be there, open to hear what a person's perspective is, and to offer guidance for them, to help them to get to a place where they feel comfortable, safe, able to perform. Work is that place where you spend the majority of your time, your waking time, and the people that you are interacting with, it's always going to be better if you have good relationships with one another. You trust your leadership, you trust where they're taking the company, and you know that you have a future there. So a lot of people come with one or multiple of those concerns about themselves. And, the idea that I can assume where best they can be, or I can solve a problem right, from the get-go. Sometimes I can, but other times it's more complex. So you just have to listen, and then you ask a lot of questions, and you help them to, a lot of times I find when I ask questions, they really already know the answers. It's just getting them to see what their truth is. So letting that kind of transpire in the conversation. And that's how I get to know people. Just like I said, so many different, I worked in nonprofit with people with disabilities in Florida for a number of years before working in academia, and then of course in engineering. So there's all different walks of life, and everybody brings value. Everybody has something to contribute. And when they feel safe, when they feel embraced, loved, and cared for, they want to, they're motivated intrinsically to feed back into that. So that's one of the things I have continued to learn about people and become impressed with what their potential is.
Yeah. Wow. We're totally aligned on that in terms of how we experience people and how we are motivated to be in spaces where we can benefit from those kinds of great experiences. I absolutely love it. Well, let's talk a little bit about Integral Path.
Okay.
This is an initiative that you have launched, and anytime somebody gives birth to a child, a business, or some other kind of idea. It's very exciting. And I know you're in that space because just like any other birth, it's also complicated.
Yeah. Yeah, it changes your life.
You're right. Absolutely. So talk to me a little bit about what this is and what it means to you to have this initiative moving forward at this time.
Yeah, thanks for asking that. So this, I feel really deeply about. It's something that I've had in the back of my mind for a number of years. I came up with the idea, the title and the logo and the idea of it probably in 2017, and just needed to learn a little bit more about myself and about, the space that I was entering in before I felt really comfortable about launching. But it's very personal, of course. When you choose a name, when you choose, like your child, you choose the name, what they're going to be called and everything. So Integral Path to me has a lot of meaning. The logo and the name and what I want to convey to people. If you look at the logo, it's an integral sign. It's turned on its side. So, we live and work in Huntsville. There's a lot of mathematics. There's a lot of science here. Everybody knows what, integral signs look like. And when you turn it on its side, it's like, okay, this is a disruption. Something happened. And taking it and integrating that with the word path. Well, path integrals in math, that's recognizing where you end up is not determined by where you start. There are multiple points that you can get to from where you're starting. And so if you look at a path integral in math, you see it looks like this web of, pathways. And that's how I see myself here working with people. Is what you need to know is, where are you at right now? Who are you? And what is that about? So in my name, in Integral Path, the I is lowercase. And that means the lowercase I is your ego, yourself, not me being me, the grandest person ever. It's just me, humble me, learning about who I am and what I can contribute aside from my ego. And above it is the spiral that starts the path. That to me symbolizes really a spiral galaxy, which is one of the biggest things I can think of. The universe, or, people say spiral out when they want you to evolve, go ahead and spiral out. So that part of it is symbolic to me. And then it leads into a pathway. It's kind of painted with a bamboo brush, and it's very organic and it's not perfect. And that's how our journeys are. It'll take a twist and turn. You might have an idea where you want to get to in life, but life, knocks you off a little bit and takes you on another direction. But you can determine where you want to go and, stick to that. And it's an ongoing journey and a path. So that's the symbolism and the meaning behind Integral Path as far as, doing organizational consulting and HR consulting. I want people to know who they are and go deep into that. I use a lot of assessments, and I'd love to talk to you about some assessments too. But, just starting with, who am I? What am I doing here? Is this, am I showing up as my best self? And what is my best self today? Helping leaders to figure that out as well. There's a lot of, when I was working with NASA, and especially in engineering, I find a lot of times that people will have a very strong technical skills and they are very competent in their area of work. And so they get promoted into a position of leadership. And they soon realize that those are two very different skill sets. And there's a big learning curve if you don't have any support and you've never done it before. So part of what I do and what I was doing with NASA was helping to bridge that gap in performance that happens when a new leader takes over a team, or when a leader steps into a position that they've never been in before. By doing a lot of coaching, assessments, talking about what it means to be a leader. And I'm part of John Maxwell Leadership Certification. That's tons of great content there that I can use and draw from. But a lot of it's from just my own experiences as well, and other people like yourself that I continue to learn from. So that's a bit about what I do. I help. It's again about change and growth. So if you're going through like what the company I'm working with now is going through some mergers, and that definitely is about change and growth. It could be you're hitting a milestone with your company size. Like a lot of companies here, when they reach 50 employees, that's when all the compliance kicks in and they have to mature their systems. There's something called CMMC going on right now in a lot of the government spaces. It's a compliance issue and dealing with security and IT, and a lot of changes that have to happen there. So I'm just there to kind of help guide the people side of all of that through Integral Path, finding our path together forward into that change.
Yeah. Who's your target audience?
Yeah, my target audience is those people who are wanting to lead better, wanting to lead themselves better, their teams better, their companies better. So they may be stuck in a place where they are not sure what to do next. They might be getting a lot of resistance from their team. And one thing I find, I use a lot of sailing analogies, and that part of me that wanted to be an oceanographer when I was a little girl still stuck with me. So I do a lot of sailing now. But a lot of leaders will try to change the weather instead of trying to navigate, with tools and equipment and knowledge to get through the weather, because they can't really control the weather. And the weather is those big changes. It's the way people are going to respond to information. And you can't change all of that. You can only really help people through it by using the equipment, using your knowledge in navigating change. And so my audience is that it's a company, and it could be, like I said, I work in a lot of government space, but it doesn't have to be necessarily that. I've also worked in academia, nonprofit, and some private industry. So I don't say it's one industry. It's just that inflection point of like, I know something bigger is coming. I don't quite know how to get there, or, we need to shift. We're going in a whole different direction. How do we handle this? And that's exciting for me to help organizations with those areas.
Anastasia, you've got so much in your toolkit. I mean, it really sounds rich. It sounds positive. It sounds potentially productive for those that choose to engage with you. And you also provide a gift to the community by having a free seminar. Talk to me a little bit about that and how people can find out more about that.
Sure. Yeah, I'd love to share that. So I started a leadership learning lab about 5 months ago. It is my intention to always offer this in the community once a month as another way that's very accessible for people to come and work on their professional development, get to know other people in the room. I keep it kind of intentionally small, like no more than about 15 people. But you come and you engage in some learning content about leadership. And it's again, starts with yourself. So for example, last month we had the topic of joy is not a perk, it's a practice. And I was talking about, like you can have, be happy with your job, but that's not sustainable. Like, things change at work and you're not always going to like just love it. Some days you just don't. And, if you look across Gallup polls and statistics, most people are not happy at work. They just really go because that's what they know. So my leadership, that particular one was about, well, how do you sustain joy in your life at the things that you can, have a bit more control on, and sharing those ideas within the room, hearing from other people how they do it. And then we talked about some practices. We went through a few, for that one was more mindful practices on centering on joy. Like we did an exercise of writing your problem in the third person. So, Anastasia, this, that, and the other, needs to work on this. And then reading it back to yourself, it really shifts in your head and makes you see it from it's not so personal when you do that. And it just like changes like, oh, wow, I see another way of approaching this. So the leadership lab I do once a month. This year I'm doing it on Thursdays during lunch, and it's usually like the last Thursday of the month. It's at a place where I go to church called the Center for Spiritual Living. They let me use their big meeting room. It's free to the community. I just ask that you register so I know who's coming, and then you can even order lunch if you want, and I'll pick it up for you and have it waiting for you.
Now, Anastasia, that's the biggest perk. Every time you say that, I'm thinking, gee, I need to be there just for that. She's going to pick it up. I mean, that's amazing that you actually lend your own personal touch to this process to make an environment that is welcoming and comfortable for as many people as possible. Anybody can be a part of this, by the way. Where would they find information for registering? Is there a website? Is there a LinkedIn? Or what is there?
Yeah, I have a website. It's called integralpathnow.com. I have had to add that now on there to keep us in the present moment, but integralpathnow.com/labs. So if you go on that page, you'll see all of the upcoming labs, and you'll see the ones in the past that I've done already. I also advertise it through the Chamber has a magazine, and I sometimes post on LinkedIn, but I'm not the best at LinkedIn. So it's more word of mouth right now. Yeah, it's been great. We've had a ton of different people coming in, and some regulars that have just kept coming back for more and more. But it's always a ton of fun having people in there, and the discussions are so rich. So I'm really grateful. And like I said, it's my intention to just offer this because I want more accessible ways for people to develop themselves. And so more the merrier. And I'll sign up for ones that I find in the community for myself as well.
Yeah, I just love all of that. And I think that what you're basically sharing with people that are listening this afternoon, that there's a model in order to become better. You don't have to sit back and try to figure it out. A good friend of mine used to say success leaves clues. It's like if you just study successful people, successful initiatives, you'll learn a lot from that. Now, you still can't stand back and watch it if you want to be a part of it. You have to dive in. And that's why I would suggest that you check out Integral Paths and make sure that you connect on a regular basis. And just like a lot of other experiences out there, there are networking opportunities that you can benefit from as well. You're not in the room, folks, so you're missing out on an opportunity, and that's exactly what we want you to be a part of. Anastasia Byler, she is the founder and the CEO of Intergraph Paths LLC, a dynamic initiative that's all about improving the quality of your life, strengthening your own personal growth and development, and perhaps even connecting you with our great community in positive ways. So Anastasia, keep doing what you're doing. I hope that we can perhaps have additional conversations on this broadcast. I would love I just thought about this a moment ago, maybe a couple of people, because I can have up to 2 other guests, maybe a couple of people who've come to a workshop and have benefited from it, want to kind of unpack it and reflect on the experience. You and I are going to always celebrate it, but we want to hear from other people as well.
Yeah.
That would be amazing. So let's talk about other opportunities to keep this in people's minds.
Yeah, definitely. I've been getting some great feedback on it. If you check out some Google reviews, that's the only thing that I ask people when they leave, like, hey, just leave a review so other people will know about this and know it's here. And I've had just meeting some really wonderful leaders in the community that I wouldn't have met otherwise. And this didn't exist 6 months ago. It's a newborn baby, like you said. It's a work in progress. I'm always asking for feedback, like give me different ideas that you have to help me improve it. Yeah. But it's for the community. It's for everybody, and I really hope that people can come out and experience it at least once and tell your friends about it. But it's all about, like you said, growth. Personal development is intentional. It doesn't just happen like the way that we, grew up when we were going through puberty. This is real. This is, truly important to look at your life and look at your purpose and say, what do I want to do to really, make a difference in other people's lives? And that is an intentional journey.
That's
So,
right.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're ready to take that journey with you. She's Anastasia Byler. She is the founder and CEO of Intergraph Paths LLC. Anastasia, thank you for joining me on this afternoon.
Oh, thank you so much, Kenny. It was great to spend time with you. Appreciate it.
Always. Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye. Great conversation this afternoon with Anastasia Byler. She, of course, the founder and CEO of Intergraph Paths LLC. And just so much positivity. And that's exactly what we try to do on this broadcast. And we try to make sure that there's an opportunity for you to get plugged in as well. Joining me at this time on the broadcast is my next guest on this special Father's Day edition of the Second Chance radio broadcast. He is Eddie Goodman III, a physical therapist with over 40 years of experience. Eddie and his wife, Donna, a licensed nutritionist, ran Lifestyle Therapeutics, a physical therapy and wellness center for 10 years. Eddie enjoys writing and has published poems and other short works. He also has a passion for gardening, community engagement, and reading. Raising Children for Heaven is his first book, his debut book, with plans for several more publications in the future. I welcome to the broadcast this afternoon, Eddie Goodman. What's going on, Eddie?
Good to be here, Kenny. It's always good to spend some time with you, man.
It is, man. And I mean, congratulations, first of all, on this publication. I was beaming when I saw you posted on Facebook. I'm always honored and proud when people are utilizing their gifts in order to be able to share with the world. And you clearly are doing this in this space. So let's start right there first with congratulations.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. It's been a multi-year process of getting this to be published finally, and I was so glad to finally have it edited and have people look at it and take a gander, and to be able to publish it. I can finally say, yes, I'm a published author from the standpoint of having a book.
Yeah, well, it's called Raising Children for Heaven. Tell me about the title, and then tell me about what the motivation behind the book was.
Well, Raising Children for Heaven, many times you want to be able to say for a certainty that, yes, we can raise my child in such a way that heaven is their goal. But when we look at the reality of life, there are so many homes that are not participating in what they could be doing to be able to make sure that their children have a yearning for heavenly things. And as I look at some of the reasons why I wrote it, it was mainly because I had an experience with my son. He made a comment when he was about in his 20s, maybe late 20s, saying, "Dad, I don't plan on having kids when I get married." And he said that because he said, "I've seen what you and Mom have gone through to raise me. And I don't know whether I have the desire to have to go through that to be able to raise a child of my own." So several years later, he made the comment, he came back and he said, "Well, Dad, I've changed my mind." I said, "Well, why did you change your mind?" He said, "Well, I see the kids that are out there, and I want to have some kids that can counter the bad influence of those kids that are out there." And I said, "Well, he's thought this thing through." So I said, "Well, now that's a good reason to be able to make that decision that you want to have children to counter what's out there." One of the reasons why I wanted to write the book was because I saw the mistakes that I made. And I realized that, we can all learn from experience. And I would rather someone not have to make the same mistakes that I did and, put something out there that's concise, that someone can look at and say, "Well, I think I can put this to practice in my home," and want to be able to do that. And of course, I saw what my son was seeing. I saw lots of families out there that were hurting. And even though I'm not a family counselor per se, when you have experience, when you have, several years of experience and you've been through certain things, you'll want to put something out there that's going to be worthwhile to be able to make a difference in the lives of some other people.
Yeah, that's great. Talk about a mistake that you made.
Well, a perfect example of that was I wanted to spend time with my son. First of all, I wanted to have a son. And when my wife was pregnant and when we found out that it was going to be a boy, she said, "Well, what are we going to name him?" And I said, well, we're going to name him Edward T. Goodman the Fourth. She says, well, are there any other options? I says, no, there's not. That's because she has some names that she wants to name him. Her brother was young. Her father had, not doing well. So many things were going on. And my uncle, who was my best friend outside of my father, his name was Vincent. So she was thinking about naming him Vincent something. No. Edward T. Goodman IV. When I was coming home from work one day, she knew how much time I wanted to spend with my son. And she says, come home and pick him up on the way home to take him back to the part store so that you can buy the part with him to be able to have him come back, and that way you can spend the time that you want to spend with him. I said, well, Donna, that doesn't make sense. Why should I pass the store to come home to pick him up and then bring him back to the store? And I realized, had I known then what I know now, that the time spent him seeing me go through the process, step by step going through the process, talking to the man at the store, seeing what part was going to be needed, picking up the part, bringing that part back, working on the car with him. Yes, he would have seen the process of me working on the car when I finally got home, but the process of going through that experience of getting that part and bringing it home, each aspect of me as a man being able to work with my son, being able to make sure he understood the things that I was doing so that he could copy that. That's one of those mistakes. And as I look at the life that I've had with him, I've seen other mistakes that I wish that I had not been able to make, but I also saw some positive things that I wish that I had understood what was going on at that time so that I could have said, well, wow, that worked pretty well. And I guess the positive one would be, I want to pass on my spiritual heritage to him. And when he was very young, must have been 6 or 7 years old, it was my habit, once I got done with church and we came home and we had our Sabbath dinner, I would grab my Bible and I would go into the living room so that I could read. And I didn't ask him to come, but he comes into the room with me with his children's Bible. He had been watching me do that for years, but he finally said, well, let me go in here with my Bible and be able to read with him. Had I known the true things that could have happened as a result of him coming in there and modeling my behavior, I could have capitalized on that in a significant way to make that a part of my regular routine, bringing him in to pass on the spiritual discipline of Bible study and prayer. So those are a couple of things, the positive and the negative of just modeling things that are going to be good for being able to raise a child that's going to be functional within community.
Yeah, so it's interesting that you were able to reflect on those things. And I think that that's so important for anybody to be able to reflect on the journey. And of course, it is Father's Day 2026. I'm going to, at the end of this show, celebrate and honor my dad like I do every end of the show on Father's Day. But I just want to ask you for a moment before we dig a little deeper into the book. Just when you think about your journey as a person and the influence of a dad in your life, what just sort of characterize that for me. What is the, and there's so much, by the way, that's why I'm stuck right here. I was going somewhere, then I got stuck because I'm like, the scope of that relationship can be so deep with so many lessons learned along the way. Let me just ask you to extract one thing that you carry with you from that relationship.
My father was not the most demonstrative man, but at the same time, he showed me a lot of things that I now participate in. He showed me, number one, a strong work ethic. He worked for 36 years at the Ford Motor Corporation. 36 years. Every day he was out there. He very seldom missed a day. And I take that into my life. My wife said, her mother said to her one time, boy, that's a BMW, a black man working. Don't say anything about him. He's a black man working. And as we look at that, that was something that I carried into my life, that I'm not going to miss the job and the responsibility that I have to take care of my family. I'm going to always be a working man to take care of what we need to have taken care of. At the same time, he also taught me the the essence of being able to take care of the things in the home. I didn't grow up being a handyman, but I worked with him whenever I had the opportunity, because he was working so hard. But whenever he was home, I spent that time working with him, learning the craft of working with my hands. What he told me one time was that if you can take it apart, you can put it back together. So the same thing with my car. If I could take that part out, I would watch, of course, what was going on, put the screws here, put the things here. If I can take that part out, I can put that part right back in. If I can cut a piece of wood that's been broken on something, I can cut that piece of wood and I can put that piece of wood right back where I got it from. And a funny story was when my wife and I got together and we were buying our first home, I wanted to buy a fixer-upper. She wanted to buy a home that was ready-made. And the reason was because of our heritage. Her father was not a fixer-upper. Things in their home, when they got broken, they stayed broken. In my home, when stuff was broken, my father always fixed it, so I learned how to fix things. So it turned out that we both got what we wanted in that first house, because it was a brand new home, but it had been empty for a while, so it had been vandalized. As a result, there were some things I needed to fix, but the house was brand new because so that's what she was able to have.
Yeah.
So we got both what we wanted, and it worked out just well.
Man, best of both worlds. That's awesome.
Best
I
of
love
both
that story. So let me ask you this. I know it'd be easy to think if you write a book, raising children for heaven. We want all our children to make it to heaven, but I think that sometimes when authors write, many times when they write, they're writing for a specific target audience. Did you have a target audience in mind, or is it just as basic as I just want to reach parents and people that have kids in their care?
I really did have a target audience in mind. I had a target audience from the standpoint of, from a couple of standpoints. One was I used to hear, and I still hear, Christian parents saying that I don't have a handbook for raising children. And I thought that was strange. I don't have a handbook. The Word of God is the handbook. Now, to be able to find the passages of Scripture that speak to child rearing specifically, that's what many parents don't have. So what I did in this particular book was extrapolate 2 or 3 texts that I felt were important. One was Proverbs 22:6, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. And then Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 6 through 9. And it talks about how God wanted to pass on the spiritual heritage to the children of Israel and to their children by having them talk about spiritual things as they were walking by the way, as they were sitting down, as they were rising up, as they were lying down. And that, to me, told about how you pass on not just sitting down didactic teaching, but the more is caught than taught aspect. And when you look at how the Bible wanted it to be done, yes, there were schools of the prophets, but you also had a situation where he wanted them to learn. One of the examples in the Old Testament was when they were crossing the Jordan River. Moses told one person from each of the tribes to grab a stone and take that stone to the other side, so that once they got to the other side, they built an altar. And when they built that altar, from that point forward, the Jordan River closed. But whenever children were walking past those stones, they said, "What are these stones about?" And that gave the parents the opportunity of sharing the story of what happened as they passed through the Jordan. And many times we don't have the waymarks there to be able to teach our children what they should learn. But God has given us the way to teach them as we go along from our day-to-day activities. And that means that it sticks much easier than it is from a classroom setting.
I love all of that. And as you're talking, any author is a person, I believe, who feels that they have something to say and that they have discovered that opportunity through the opportunity to produce a manuscript that
Right.
allows them to share information that they think is valuable to other people. You're at this point in your life, and this is your first book. Where did you find your voice in order to be able to do that? I'm not talking about your voice in terms of standing up in front of people and speaking.
Right,
I'm just
right,
saying
right.
that moment where you were like, you know what? I have something to say. And I know I've had some experiences and some people have said some things and that and the other, but everybody doesn't then convert that into a book. So you clearly had an opportunity to do something that was going to produce something that would get into people's hands, that would be a representation of your voice. Where'd you find that voice?
It kind of came when I went to Tuskegee. I was a young man, and as I was growing up, I had a traumatic experience that coming out of that experience, I began to stutter significantly. I still have a stutter, and people can notice that every now and then, but that experience caused me to be very introverted. I went to Tuskegee University, and it was an area where I didn't know anybody, nobody knew me, and it seemed as though I began to blossom at that point. That's when I began to write lots of poetry. That's when I began to spend more time talking and sharing. In fact, one of my family members who knew me as a child, when they met me in college, that they swung by my house because they were on their way to see my parents. And when they came into my apartment, they looked at me and I was talking and they said, well, my goodness, what happened to Eddie? Because I was so quiet. I would sit in church on the side of the wall and wouldn't say anything. And when they saw that I was expressing myself, it was a shock to them. So I would say Tuskegee was where I began to have more of the ability to express myself. And then as I began to write, I began to do poetry. I began to do some short stories and some things along that line. And I began to see that I did enjoy putting pen to paper, putting those thoughts down and being able to do that. And as a result, and then as I began to run into people who were having some problems, and I would share some principles that I had learned, and they would try those out, and they said, well, that worked, do you have anything else? Do you want to be able to share anything else? So as a result of that experience, wanting to be able to get my voice heard, wanting to be able to be published, I wanted to be able to have at least one book out there. And I believe each person has a book in them. I'm surprised, Kenny, that you haven't written a book yet. Or have you written one?
I'm in the process. I'm writing my first book.
Well, I think everybody has one. This is my first one. In fact, I have book number 2 is already on the way. It's about how we found the house that we're living in right now. That was a providential prayer adventure. So once this one is going pretty good, I'm going to go on ahead and I'll be publishing my second book probably within the next couple of months.
Oh, I mean, it sounds like you're on a ride right now.
I'm on a roll.
Well, I want to do a couple of things before we end the conversation. The first thing I want to do is let people know how they can find the book, because we want people to benefit from this. It's a beautiful book, Raising Children for Heaven, and it's actually got a subtitle, A Countercultural Plan for Raising Children, much to the point that you talked about earlier, to provide parents, adults, teachers, coaches, mentors, a blueprint to be able to provide success for kids. So it's a beautiful book. Where can people find the book?
You can go to Amazon. You can go to Amazon and put in Raising Children for Heaven, and it will pop up. It will be right there. And you can purchase that. You can put that on your Kindle, and you can read it from that.
There you go. And it's written by, you'll see Edward T. Goodman III.
Yep.
And that's the author of the book. Eddie, I don't think I've ever called you Edward, but I'll call you Edward for this conversation in terms of identifying the book.
Please call me Eddie.
Yeah, for the book. Just for the book. But you got to tell us about the garden, man. What's going on with the garden?
The garden. That's something that the wife and I have had a very enjoyable time over the entire 42 years of our marriage. The first time that I had first of all, my mother had a huge garden when we were living in Barron Springs, Michigan. So the impetus for having a garden started with her. And she's the kind of person who laid that garden out just right perfectly. She had a path going down each side. She had flowers in the garden, stuff that you can't eat but looked good. She had that going in the garden. And then we grew just about everything that we ate. And we would make our homemade applesauce. We would make grape juice, all those things. She kind of got me started as far as having an understanding about putting a seed into the soil and bringing forth the fruit. And the first garden that we had was a garden that was next door to the house that we were living in. We had a home, and right next door there was a senior citizen who was too old to work her garden plot. She had the tiller, she had the hoe, she had the shovel, she had all the tools, but she says, I can't work it. So she said that if I let you work the garden, just give me some of what your produce is. I said, that's a working deal. That's a working deal. So I worked the garden, and I gave her, as much as she could eat, and that allowed us to be able to have that. And from that point on, every year, wherever we've been, I've always had some type of garden.
Wow.
And the garden I have right now, I had to have a fence put around it because there were a few rodents who were causing some problems for me. So I wanted to make sure that they couldn't get into the garden. So I've got a fence around the garden. And right now we're growing everything from cabbage to broccoli to several types of potatoes and tomatoes, peppers. So this is what I love to do. And if I had the opportunity of retiring much like yourself, I would be able to spend every day in my garden doing all that I could to bring it to pass.
Man, it sounds wonderful. It sounds awesome. And I really appreciate that. The book is called Raising Children for Heaven. It's written by Eddie Goodman, but you'll see if you're looking for it on Amazon, look for Raising Children for Heaven, but you'll see the author is Edward T. Goodman III, physical therapist. And of course, that's another whole part of his story and his journey. We'll have him come back on and talk about that element at some point in life as well. But for now, Eddie, it's been great talking with you, man. I look forward to additional conversations. I look forward to finishing reading the book as well. And I hope that many people will benefit from the blessing that you have been by allowing God to use you for this publication.
Thank you very much, Kenny.
All right, brother. Have a good rest of the day.
You too.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Great way to bring our conversation close to an end. But of course, as I said, I always on Father's Day like to share with my audience my tribute to my dad. This is something that I've done for many, many years now. And it's always a privilege and a pleasure to share this as I close the show on today. I will do it as I have done it for many years before. Today is Father's Day, and one of the things I don't get to do is call my father and wish him happy Father's Day. I'm one of the many who no longer have the physical presence of their fathers, but nevertheless, I look forward to this day each year because it gives me an opportunity to celebrate the life of my dad. The following is the text from a broadcast on this show that aired on Monday, July the 17th, 1995. That's a little over 30 years ago when I first read this on the air. Our society seems to cry out for real heroes and role models. I wanted to share my story of a real hero. I believe that every child wants to think of his or her dad as the best dad that there ever was. My experience was no different. I had the best dad a kid could ever have. Fortunately, it didn't take his sudden death for me to value and appreciate the gift that was his life. One of the most commonly heard phrases in our society is the sentiment that a good man is hard to find. Talk shows and periodicals are replete with the purported evidence that there is a pervasive unavailability of men today for many, many different reasons: premature death, drugs, prison, and more. Well, I'm thankful that those sobering predictions are just one part of the big picture. Good men, though possibly hard to find, can be found. And my father was one of those men. Jack D. Anderson was born on July 16, 1923 in Johnston, South Carolina, to the late Joseph and Delamay Anderson, originally from Charleston, South Carolina. He was the seventh of 8 children, 6 boys and 2 girls. My father never completed formal education, but I often say he had a PhD in common sense. He was my best example of the reality that the most intelligent person is not necessarily the person who graduated summa cum laude from college. My dad entered the United States Army in the early 1940s, where he served for 3 years, including a tour of duty in northern France during World War II. It's amazing how little you know about people sometimes, even those who are closest to you. While going through my dad's possessions after his death, my family came across information that my dad had received several distinguished service awards while in the Army and had received an honorable discharge in 1946. A modest and humble man, my dad rarely talked about those awards or even that experience. My father rejoined his family in Elizabeth, New Jersey, and shortly after he married my mom, the former Annie D. Crum, in New York City, which would be my birthplace. Their marriage would be preserved for 41 years, during which time God blessed the union with 4 children: Gwendolyn, Jackie, me, and Annette. Outside of his love for God, my dad was extremely proud of his family and devoted his life to us. A short time after his death, I remember sitting on the couch with my mom, talking about what a good man my dad was, imagining the pain that I was experiencing as his son of 34 years. I suddenly realized that I could not begin to fathom my mom's pain, who remained deeply in love with him for those years that they were married. Sometime during our conversation, I noted that I had never remembered hearing my dad raise his voice in anger toward my mom. And she replied, he never did. As a professional counselor, I know that there are so many people who cannot begin to think of growing up in a loving, nurturing environment without the common chaos that characterizes so many homes today. I was blessed to grow up in such a home. Now, don't get me wrong, we were no Brady Bunch family, and I probably had more in common with J.J. Evans than Beaver Cleaver. But my home was a place where God dwelt. My dad was the priest of our home. Family worship established a foundation for our existence, and my family prayed and played together. We ate together and watched a limited amount of TV together. We went to church together and sat together for years. I can appreciate all of these things so much more today now that I'm able to see the consequences of such an investment. We lived in public housing, but when you live there, it's home and nobody really knows the difference, especially when there's so much love. I'll never forget the time that my dad devoted to me on those days when he would come home from work and still take time to go outside and throw the baseball with me or bat the ball. I share his love for baseball and the New York Yankees today because of those special trips, including many trips to Yankee Stadium. My dad demonstrated a work ethic that was second to none. He was employed by International Flavors and Fragrances in Teterboro and later Dayton, New Jersey, for 36 years before retiring in 1985. During that time, he amassed an impressive attendance record, in spite of the fact that he had to get up in the wee hours of the morning, get dressed, walk several blocks to the train station, catch 2 different trains, and then catch a bus at the Port Authority for the ride into Jersey. Once he arrived at his destination, he had a short walk from the bus stop. If I thought about it earlier in my life, I might have guessed that my father was the proverbial mailman because neither rain nor sleet nor snow would have ever kept him from going to work. He probably had 1,000 hours of leave when he finally retired. But that wasn't all. My dad was an active member of the Bethel Seventh-day Adventist Church in Brooklyn, New York for many years, where he served on both the usher board and later on the deacon board. He served there faithfully until he relocated to New Jersey, where he continued to work for the Lord as a Sabbath school superintendent and deacon at the First Seventh-day Adventist Church in Glassboro, New Jersey, just east of Camden. My father was a very spiritual person who truly saw his duty and service to God as a marriage between his duty and service to others. It was not uncommon to see him with a broad smile on his face and an inspirational word on his lips or a piece of literature in his hands. One of the greatest testimonies that I can share is that my dad was very popular, not for what he had, where he lived, or who he knew, but because of who he was, a man of character and respect. He was well liked by everyone that he met, and people still tell me that they will never forget him. He was known for his ever-present smile, handshake, and kind words. He would always let you know that he was happy to see you. He was never too busy to take time for those he met. No matter what, he always saw the good in others. Once he met you, he considered you a lifelong friend. He made everyone feel very special. Through the many years, he left memorable impressions on the minds of so many people. It would satisfy him just to know he was able to help someone or make him or her happy. He loved the time that he spent with his grandchildren and shared his love of sports with them also. He was always there when they needed him. My dad died after suffering a massive heart attack on the morning of Saturday, January 11th, 1992, while preparing for church. One of the things that he loved to do the most. His loss was and is still felt by so many loved ones, and he will never be forgotten. There's an Ashanti proverb that says, when you follow in the path of your father, you learn to walk like him. My father's spirit continues to live through the work that I do in this community and beyond, and I'm honored to be called his son. There are some simple lessons that I've learned from my dad's life. People need loving the most when they deserve it the least. Take time for those you love. There's a vast difference between standard of living and quality of life. Work as if everything depends on you and pray as if everything depends on God. There's no limit to the amount of good a person can accomplish if he or she doesn't care who gets the credit. Richness is measured by what one is, not by what one has. A friend is not a shadow who is present only when the sun shines. A friend is someone who knows you and likes you in spite of knowing who you are. My dad was a great man, a good man, an excellent mentor, devoted husband, father, role model, and my personal hero. My tribute to him, if I could only be half the man that my father was, I feel that I'd be truly blessed. Once again, happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. We love you. We hope that those in your life show that love. We hope that you feel that love. And we hope that you feel valued. On next Sunday, my guest will be Dr. Helen Powell Stoddard, who will talk to me about a new series that we're establishing called Reversing Diabetes. And you'll hear from her throughout the remainder of this year, various months. We'll also be talking with Dr. Harry Hobbs, who will come on to talk about Community Awareness for You 2026, the big back-to-school event that takes place every year. And my good friend, Dr. Myron Edmonds, the CEO and founder of The Winning Circle, will be on to talk about a new initiative called The Waiting Room. We look forward to all of those conversations on next week. In the meantime, have a great rest of the day. And remember, as always, knowledge is better than riches. Have a great afternoon. And once again, happy Father's Day.
Thank you for tuning in to Second Chance. We hope that the information that was shared has been a blessing to you and that your life will be enriched as a result of it. We'd love to hear from you. So please send your email comments to Kenneth Anderson at mxlife@aol.com. That's mxlife@aol.com. And check out our Facebook page, 2ND Chance. That's 2ND Chance. In the meantime, have a great week, and we'll talk to you again next week. Good day.